Thank you for the introduction. Thanks to all of you for being here today. BSides are very close to my heart, as are all community events around cybersecurity. Because cybersecurity has been my life. I've been working in this field for more than 30 years. In fact, some of you know that I always carry something with me to remind myself where I'm coming from. One of the first viruses I ever analyzed. This is a 5¼ floppy from 1991, containing a virus called form.a. And it's an example of a cyber attack from a different era. This is the offline era. I was working doing reverse engineering for viruses which were spreading around the world when people were carrying these with them, because nobody was online at the time. We are living through technology revolutions. The biggest revolution during our time so far was the internet revolution. And for years I thought that that's how we will be remembered. Our generations, the people who lived in the early 2000s, would forever be remembered in history books as the first people in mankind's history who went online. Mankind walked the planet for 100,000 years offline. We were the first ones to go online, and the mankind will be online forever from this moment on. That's what I thought. In fact, that's what I wrote in my book. I had a book come out last year. This year came out translated auf Deutsch. And I'm mentioning this because when we get to questions and answers, the first 4 persons will get a copy of the book. So that's good to keep in mind. And one of the forecasts I mention in the book is what I just told you. We will be remembered forever as the first generations who got online. And I think I got it wrong. I no longer believe that. In fact, what I now believe is that we will forever be remembered as the first generations who were gaining access to artificial intelligence. So, let's start with the obvious one, which is a deepfake video.
Greetings everyone. My name is Mikko and I hunt hackers. Thank you all for joining our conference today. It's great to see you all. Greetings everyone. My name is Mikko and I hunt hackers. Thank you all for joining our conference today. It's great to see you all.
That's Laura Kankala, Threat Intel Lead for F-Secure. That's Mikko, Chief Research Officer for WithSecure. Laura is real, Mikko is not. There's nothing new here. You've all seen deepfakes. However, this is the level of homemade deepfakes today, done on one home computer with one NVIDIA GeForce card. And the end result is good enough that I can't tell that it's not Mikko, and I am Mikko. Now, it's not real time yet. Homemade deepfakes of this quality are pretty impressive, but it takes a while to render them. But of course, technology only gets better. Computers only get faster. We will see homemade, real-time deepfakes of this quality in a very short time. So generative AI is changing the world for the better and for the worse. But why is it happening right now? Why 2022, 2023? In 2 weeks, it's going to be the first anniversary of ChatGPT. And I suppose most people were exposed to the latest crazies of generative AI with ChatGPT. I actually had been playing around with GPT since GPT-2. Some of you might remember GPT-2, which wasn't chat. At the time, you would write text, like the beginning of a sentence, and hit a button, and it would complete the sentence for you. That's how it used to work before they changed the user interface. But why now? And this is a great question, considering that the first time I read about artificial intelligence was when I read this magazine. This is a Finnish popular science magazine called Tekniikan maailma, which is Finnish, which means the world of technology. Yes, I live in Helsinki. And I read this magazine when I was 13 years old, because this magazine is from April 1983. And this magazine describes a future where all information, the mankind's knowledge, is no longer on paper, it's data. And it sees a future where we could use this data in these massively large machine learning algorithms to teach human knowledge to machines. This is 1983. It took 40 years, but that's exactly what we've done. Today, all new knowledge we create by default is data. Everything is written on computers, on the networks. In fact, we've gone back and we've digitalized all the old data as well. Like you could actually read this magazine from 1983 on the magazine's website. It's scanned in as a PDF. So we've taken all the old data, all the old books, all the old magazines and newspapers, and we take all the new data, and it's all bits. We can store it all, and we can run it all through these algorithms. Now, I'm assuming that you all have read the seminal 4-part trilogy, Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy by Douglas Adams. And those of you who haven't, what's wrong with you? And if Douglas Adams would be alive, he would say, we've done it, we've created it, we have the guide, don't we? Because in the books, he describes a small handheld device, which everybody has, which has all human knowledge, can answer every question. If you have a smartphone, and I know you do, if it's online, and it is, and if it has, let's say, the ChatGPT app, we're pretty much there, aren't we? We've created the guide. But it's not enough that we had all the data online. We still needed to go through revolutions in algorithms and in computing power. And in fact, I think the biggest reason why it's happening right now, why this revolution is happening right now, is the explosion in computing speed. Some of you are in this room right now with an iPhone 15. iPhone 15 uses 3 nanometer technology. 3 nanometer technology in the Apple chip, which was built by TSMC in Taiwan using this machine built by ASML in the Netherlands. And what 3 nanometers really means is that we have these tiny, tiny drawings where the lines, the space between lines in the drawings is 3 nanometers. And then we use these machines to burn those images into silicon die. We use light, lasers, to burn those images. The problem we have is that these drawings are so tiny, 3 nanometers between the lines, that light doesn't go through, because the wavelength of light is 400 nanometers. It won't fit. And the way we do this is with magic. That's the closest I can really describe how it's done. Because what they do is that they take tiny droplets of tin, suspend that droplet in mid-air, shoot it with lasers, turning it into plasma. And then they use that plasma, which exists for a fraction of a second, as a lens to condense the wavelength of light from 400 nanometers to 3 nanometers so it fits through these tiny drawings so they can actually build these chips. What I'm really saying is that this is the hardest thing to do in the world. Nothing is as hard as this. It's easier to put a man on the moon than to build one chip like this. It's so hard, there's only one company left which can do it. And the end result is NVIDIA H100, the basic building block of the machine learning frameworks and the data centers that are being run by companies like Microsoft to teach all these algorithms. 30,000 euros a pop if you can buy them, and you most likely won't because they are in such a high demand. Another great example on the computing power explosion is the fact that the phone you have in your pocket would have been classified as a supercomputer 20 years ago. I recently was visiting the 3rd fastest supercomputer in the world. It's a joint EU project. It's the size of 2 full-size trucks. It runs on its own power generator, and they use the excess heat from the supercomputer to heat an entire city. That computer costs 260 million euros. That's what supercomputers look like. What I'm saying is that the phone in your pocket in 2003 would have been roughly the 100th fastest supercomputer on the planet. And this doesn't cost hundreds of millions, it costs a couple of €100. And everybody has one. And it doesn't need a power generator, it runs on a goddamn battery. Like, this is what happened in the last 20 years. And this is why this revolution is happening right now. So what are the downsides? The upsides are pretty obvious. We get great new resources. We can come up with completely new ideas with these large language models. We can generate content, video, text, images, come up with new ideas. I actually know a friend of mine who's working in a creative field. He's coming up with storylines. And he's nowadays spending his evening jogs with AirPods in his ears and ChatGPT app on his phone, and he's sparring with ChatGPT, like talking to it. Hi, I'm working on a story. It's a murder mystery. And there's this idea that it's going to be like a separate, isolated building with like 10 people and one of them dies. What do you think? What could those people be? And then ChatGPT speaks to him. Well, one of them could be a baron with a shady history. Just coming up with ideas, which, I mean, sounds like science fiction. He's been doing this for a couple of months already. Speaking every day with an artificial intelligence to come up with ideas. But we are not in the ideas business, are we? We're in the business of cybersecurity. And that's why we worry about things like these.
Hi, my friend got an idea of cryptocurrency exchange, and now he's product entering the world market on June 7th. He offers the best conditions on the market and an opportunity to get some crypto for free. It's your chance. Go to bitrelex.com and get your bonus.
Do not go to bitrelex.com to get your bonus. It's a scam. Yes, a deepfake. Deepfake of Elon Musk, which sounds like Elon Musk, looks like Elon Musk, which is posted on Elon Musk's own service, which is pushing a cryptocurrency scam. Now, there's tons of fears around things which can be done with deepfakes, and they are very valid fears. However, we haven't seen that many attacks like this. This is pretty blatant, pretty obvious. This is a scam. They're trying to scam people out of their money using a deepfake of a celebrity. But I only have 2 examples to show you. You would think this would be a bigger problem by now, but it really isn't that common to find these. I have this video. The other example I have is this guy. You might know him as well, the second most popular YouTuber in the world.
If you're watching this video, you're one of the 10,000 lucky people who'll get an iPhone 15 Pro for just $2. I'm Mr. Beast, and I'm doing the world's largest iPhone 15 giveaway. Click the link below to claim yours now.
Do not click the link. You're not going to get an iPhone 15 for $2. But that's it. The rest of like real world deepfake examples I have are not about trying to steal money. There's been a couple of examples of political framing or scams or trying to get your political enemies to look bad or things like that. But again, you would think this would be a bigger problem, but it will be. So that's problem number 1, deepfakes being used for different kind of attacks. Problem number 2, deep scams. Not deepfake videos, but just scamming people at scale. Think auction scams, Airbnb scams, romance scams. Right now, it's an attacker scamming 1 victim at a time, or 2 or 3 victims at a time, in a language he can handle or use translation engines to cope with it. You could scale this with large language models so that one scammer could be scamming 10,000 victims in all possible languages at the same time. That's problem number 2. Problem number 3, well, malware. Here's an example of malware using large language models. This is LL Morpher. We found this in April, so it's been around for a couple of months. You can actually download it from GitHub right now if you feel like it. It carries with itself an API key for the OpenAI API. And then every time it replicates, it's a Python worm. It finds Python files on your system. When it finds one, it will copy its own functions into your files, but it doesn't copy them direct. It has an English language description of each function. Then it calls the OpenAI API, asks for this kind of function. Could you write me a Python function which does this, 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 and this? And then it copies the end result code into your files, infecting them, which means the malware looks completely different every time it replicates, and it would be trivial to modify this to infect any programming language, anything that GPT would support. But what I actually really worry about isn't this. It's full automation of malware campaigns. Security companies have been using machine learning and automation for a very long time. The company I work for, WithSecure, our founder, the guy who set up the company in 1988, 35 years ago, he's been a big promoter of machine learning, artificial intelligence for a very long time. In fact, he went back to school. He went to Stanford 5 years ago to study how to program machine learning systems. He's the chairman of the board of our company, right? He was actually the chairman of Nokia at the same time. That's leading by example. When your top manager goes back to school to learn how to program cutting-edge new technologies, which he believes is going to change the world, it really sets the pace for the rest of the organization. So we've been heavily involved in building AI-based systems for security. In fact, we started our first automation project 18 years ago. And all that time, we've been waiting for the enemy to start to do the same thing. Because right now, defenders are using automation heavily, making them very fast, very quick in finding new attacks, analyzing them automatically, building detection, testing detection, and deploying detection back to our clients, while the attackers are still working with manual ways, which means when they deploy a new ransomware or whatever, defenders will block it fairly quickly, but they don't realize it. It takes them hours to figure out that, hey, our domain is blocked, or hi, our emails are being filtered as spam, or our command and control server has been filtered out, or our binary is being detected by EDRs. We have to go and recompile it, and then they go and recompile it manually. So it's like machines working at machine speed against humans working at human speed. And right now it's the defenders which have the edge. And this is what's going to change. And it hasn't changed yet. How do we know? Because they are still slow. It still takes them hours or even days to react to defenders who have reacted with automation. And this could change tomorrow. There's nothing preventing this from changing tomorrow. It could have changed already. This is not rocket science. This is not very hard to do. They simply haven't done it yet. And when they do, and this could be tomorrow, then we will see which one will win, good AI or bad AI. Which one is faster, basically. We believe, we hope, our systems would have the edge, would be faster, would be better. We've been building them for years and years, but that's all it is. It's a wish, it's a hope. We'll see for real fairly soon. And then there's the whole discussion about openness of these technologies. Now, I'm a big fan of open source. I'm a Finn. I live in Helsinki. I went to Helsinki University together with Linus Torvalds, the guy who created the Linux kernel. I like open source. But there's one place where it is problematic, and that is very powerful AI models. It's problematic because these models have tons of security and safety precautions built in. Anybody who downloads or who has access to source code can simply remove all of that. And then they can use these systems to do what the hell they want. And we've seen this already. We have closed source image generators and open source image generators. The open source image generators are the ones which are being used to create revenge porn or other unethical content. We have closed source large language models and open source large language models. The open source ones are the ones which are used to create phishing emails right now, or to run romance scams, because they can just remove all the restrictions. And it could get worse. Think about all the dictators in the world. Famously, Vladimir Putin of Russia said already in 2016, the one who controls artificial intelligence controls the world. I don't agree with President Putin in anything, but he's right. And I'd much rather not see a dictator gain access to the next level of artificial intelligence technologies. The more of this material that is available simply by downloading the source codes and the weights from the internet, the riskier it is that that's what we would be seeing. And I guess we've all seen the news about OpenAI for the last 20 hours. OpenAI, the #1 most public company in the world for this year, has a crisis. About 20 hours ago, the board of OpenAI fired the CEO, Sam Altman. In protest and in support of Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, another founder and a board member, quit. He was the chairman of the board, and 4 or 5 senior OpenAI executives have left as well, including their director for AI safety. What's really going on? I don't know. But I think it's possible that this company will not survive. It's perfectly possible that we will see a mass exodus of people leaving. It really depends on if there's a backstory about what really went down and why was Sam Altman fired. One theory right now that it's a fight about AI safety and security, but we don't really know. I'll end with one note about safety and security that they've been building inside OpenAI, because I've been impressed about the resources they've been putting into safety and security. The business model of all of OpenAI is highly unusual. The biggest investors in OpenAI, like Microsoft, which has invested $12 billion, they have no board seats. They have no votes. They decide on nothing. Let me repeat that. The biggest investor in this company decides on nothing. This is highly unusual. They built the company so that there's a non-profit which has all the decision power, and then a subset of that non-profit is the for-profit company, which is where Microsoft has been investing all the money. But they call no shots. Why? Because the company believes that there's more money in artificial intelligence, especially in AGI, than in anything ever. And I think they're right. If we hit artificial general intelligence, and that is their goal, or artificial superintelligence, then I do agree there's probably more money to be made there than with food or fossil fuels or anything ever. And it's quite obvious that when there's so much money at stake, then the decision-making suffers. So they've taken money out of the equation to try to keep it safer and more secure. When you look at the GPT system card and just browse through the list of people working in safety and security, you'll see an endless list of red teamers who are trying to break the security of, well, right now, GPT-5, to try to make it safer. How? Well, my favorite example is that around a year ago, before none of us had seen GPT-4, they did a test. A test where they gave GPT access to internet and tasks. Go and do this. Go and set up a system like this. So, and it tried to do the tasks, but it couldn't do everything because it had to set up virtual machines and buy hosting space and things like that. So they gave it money. So now we have a large language model which has access to internet and money. And while it was then using the money to spin up some Kubernetes systems on hosting space it had paid with the money it had, it ran into CAPTCHAs. And at the time, GPT-4 couldn't crack these. So what did it do? Well, it hired a human to crack them for itself. And that's not the best part. The best part is that after doing it for a while, the human challenged the machine, saying that, hey, why do you need me to crack these for you? Are you a machine? And GPT answered the human by lying and saying that, oh, no, of course I'm not a machine. I'm visually impaired. I can't see very well. Could you please crack these for me? And then the human cracked the captcha codes for the machine. And this is exactly the kind of things we don't want to see these systems doing. We don't want them to lie to us. And that's the kind of testing they are doing to figure out these problems before they become something that they would actually ship to real users. So, we will be seeing deepfakes, more of deepfakes than we've ever seen before. Right now, it's still a relatively small problem. For example, I don't have a single case where a business email compromise or a CEO scam would have successfully been done with a deepfake voice or video. And I know that if you follow this field, you've read reports of these. There's been reporting that, yeah, this company was fooled with a Teams call, and it was the CFO, and it wasn't. I've read the same articles. I'm just asking for evidence. I'm not challenging that it couldn't be done or that we wouldn't have the technology to do this. I'd just like to see some evidence, because we've so many times seen people who have been fooled, not with deepfakes, but with just someone who sounds like the CEO or the CFO, and they are completely fooled. And it's an almost too easy excuse. I don't know. I'm not stupid. I wasn't fooled by some stupid CEO scam. This was a completely new kind of attack which would have fooled anyone. So it's also possible that this is happening. Nevertheless, it will be a bigger problem in the future. Then we have the deep scams, scamming consumers and corporate users in scale. And we will have malware written by large language models, and then we will have complete automation of malware campaigns, which could start already tomorrow. Regardless of all of these doomy and gloomy views, I'm still kind of hopeful and optimistic about where this technology is taking us. If we take these problems seriously enough, we can gain access to technologies which will help us humans hopefully solve some of the toughest problems we have, the kind of problems we can't solve by ourselves. And that I am an optimist about. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Mikko. And as already hinted, we are taking questions. Okay.
So I have 3 copies of the German book, which came out auf Deutsch in July, and 1 copy in English. So we'll see how this goes, but just so you know. The title auf Deutsch is Was vernetzt ist angreifbar. And you can actually find it on was.vernetzt.ist, which is kind of cool because .ist is actually the top-level domain for Istanbul. But I just figured I could use it here. So let's have the first question.
Hey, thanks for the talk. It was really amazing. So my question is, what's in your opinion, what can be done by governments or big tech companies to prevent the gloomy scenario that you envisioned?
One thing which is also highly unusual about the frontier AI companies, the startup AI companies, especially like Anthropic and OpenAI, is that these companies have gone to governments themselves, saying that, you know, this technology we're building can be dangerous. You should regulate us. Come regulate us. That's not what normal companies do. That's exactly the opposite of what normal companies do. And we have seen governments around the world wake up. Now, I'm not a big fan of regulation. I think regulation quite often fails, and it's quite hard to do. I think we have big challenges with the current EU AI Act, which in the early drafts looked really nice. With the version we have right now doing the rounds, they changed it towards the end with many drastic changes, which to me don't look too good. Regulation is a big challenge, but I suppose that's the way we do it. And we have to remember that regulation and laws in technology always, it takes a while. When I started in my career, when I analyzed the first viruses in 1991, it wasn't illegal to write viruses. In any country, anywhere in the world. We pass the laws, and of course today it is illegal everywhere. So regulation and laws will follow, but it's going to take a while. And you have a book waiting for you. Let's take a second question.
I first saw a hand somewhere around. Was it you?
There's one over here. Or, yeah, thank you.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I was wondering, do you think at any point basically AI could claim intellectual property to its product or the company? You mentioned your author friend, or even if you think like, okay, hey, it helped me write an application, and that is now wildly popular, very valuable, and now the company comes back and says, hey, I have actual authorship to this.
That's a great question, and we have a big discussion to be had about who has the rights for the content generated by technologies which have been taught with the whole human knowledge, including every book ever written. I'm really amazed about engines like Claude and also GPT, about how well it speaks Finnish, which is my home language. They speak better Finnish than I do, and I am a Finn, and no one taught them the language. They picked up the language simply because they were given access to all the Finnish content ever written, including all the commercial content, all the books and all of that. And yes, I guess it's great for humanity in general that we built this technology, but it does pose great questions. You could say the same thing about images. I've been playing around with, I'm paying 10 euros a month to Midjourney, so I can upload images taken by professional photographers, images with a copyright. And then I can teach the system, and then it can generate new images which are licensed under Creative Commons 5.1, which means you could print those on a t-shirt and sell them, and that would be legal. Even if it's legal, is it okay? I certainly don't have the answers here, but I do know that that's the discussion we really should be having. Let's take another one.
Next one was
There's one right here.
Oh.
So about AGI, artificial general intelligence, I was wondering, quantum computers versus AGI, what will come first and what will have a bigger impact?
Oh.
And regarding quantum computers, they still exist, but I mean on a larger, easier scale, like for example, breaking RSA.
Sure. Quantum computers definitely do exist. I've touched one in Helsinki. I can tell you it was really cool, literally cool. But it only has very limited amount of qubits, which means you can't really do anything too practical with it. So we are close. In fact, if you go back to 1980s, you can probably find Technic and Mama magazine speaking about quantum computers 40 years ago. There's many similarities in the timelines of AI and quantum computers. Both have been known for decades. We've gone through these springs and winters and falls, and then suddenly now we are in the middle of an AI summer. When will we hit quantum summer? We don't know. I'm not going to guess, but it could happen soon. And the thing I think about a lot is what's going to happen with machine learning when we do have quantum computers with the capability. Because the big explosion in machine learning algorithms, partially it came from better algorithms, like the innovations done at Google, which really did most of the great research around transformers, but about the computing capability, TSMC, ASML, switch from CPUs to GPUs. And the difference between CPUs and GPUs, as you know, is parallel computing. That's how we were able to teach these much better. Well, that's what quantum does even better. So we might hit completely new level of machine learning systems with quantum computers if they would become reality in the near future. But we'll see. And we take the last question, and then we are ready to go to the bar.
Yeah. For the risk of deepfakes, can't we actually use AI for that? I mean, imagining like we have a Teams call and there is an AI agent on the Teams call that watches all the videos, and if it detects like, oh, this looks fake, and then kind of tag that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I imagine that generating a deepfake that is really a fake that cannot be detected is much harder than to detect a fake because of light and shadows and stuff, which is hard to get right, but easier for an AI to detect to being wrong?
Detecting deepfake content, voice, still image, video image, can all be done with algorithms, but it very quickly becomes, and has already become, a race between cat and mouse. All the detections we build will quickly be counteracted by the people who don't want to get detected. In fact, the very first deepfake videos never blinked, and the first detection mechanism simply looked for people who never blinked. Very simple, very effective, and of course they changed it very quickly, and now deepfakes blink. I've actually had meetings with OpenAI about different mechanisms of watermarking image content and even text content. It is a hard problem to solve, and it's probably unsolvable with open source systems. Whatever watermarking you would put in there, if it's open source, you can just remove that technology as well. So yeah, I'm sure we will try to detect fake content with different systems, and then we'll get better fake content which cannot be detected by current systems. One thing I've started doing myself is that whenever somebody wants to take a selfie with me, I actually have don't have it with me right now, unfortunately, but I have a rubber finger. And then I pose with people, and I have a 6th finger in one hand, and then later I can claim that it's a deep fake. So that's it. Those of you who got a book, please meet me over here. The rest of you, I'll see you in the bar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mikko. Thank you all for coming here, joining us, staying until the end. Last but not least, before closing the session, I would like to say a big thank you to Yvette for moderating the whole event. Thank you. Thanks a lot, all of you.